Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, 12 Steps to Effective Engineering to Order Project Management with Business Central. My name is Martin Karlovic and I'm CEO and co-owner of NETRONIC Software from Germany, and I'm your host for today's webinar. As this is a webinar, all of you guys are on mute, but this is not because I don't want to engage and discuss with you, but this is just to avoid some unwanted background noise. So if you have a question, then please use the GoToWebinar chat pane. There are two options. So if I'm on PowerPoint, then I will most likely answer the question right away, because when I'm on PowerPoint, I get a notification that I see a notification that there was a question asked. If I'm doing a demo, I might overlook that little message that I'm getting, and then I will answer or see when I get back to PowerPoint that there is a question, and then I will answer your question then. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me your ideas, your questions, your thoughts. I'm really, really happy to help and happy to engage. And with this, let's get going with 12 steps to effective engineering to order project management with Business Central. So obviously, in terms of our products, this is not a beginners or not an introductory webinar. So I will use our product, the Visual Job Scheduler, to cover some parts of these 12 effective steps. And while I do so, I will not explain the Visual Job Scheduler in all the details, but I will simply use it to cover the use case of doing project management. So if you want to have an explanation or a more fundamental, more basic presentation of the VJS, then also please feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to set this up. I will either do it directly with you guys or I will ask one of my colleagues to do it with you. Totally fine. But today, this is no introduction to the product, but actually I will give you some examples how to best use it to accomplish certain goals on these 12 steps to effective project management. And with this, obviously we as NETRONIC, we do a lot of scheduling and we talk about a lot of scheduling. We do planning and we provide visual scheduling extensions for Business Central. And whenever it comes to visual scheduling or visual planning, then the purpose of this is to achieve an equilibrium. So in case of project planning, you want to achieve an equilibrium of your supply of your internal resources and the demand for those internal resources that you have. So on the one hand, you have the supply of your resources coming from, when we talk Business Central, coming from your resource groups and from your resources and the resource capacities. And the demand for those resources comes when we talk about Business Central, and jobs come from your job planning lines, which are making up your job task, and where a bunch of job tasks makes up for your jobs or your projects. So when we talk about Business Central, when we talk about visual project and resource planning for Business Central, we need a minimum set of data that is required, and it is really a minimum set. So most customers that work with the jobs module have this anyway, but just in case, if you're thinking of, after you've implemented Business Central, making the next step in terms of managing your projects, then you definitively should look at your resource groups and resources, set them up, and I will also give some recommendations on how to set up both resources and resource groups. And you definitively need also to define a resource calendar, which means this is like we're setting up the resource calendar where you say, okay, this guy works 40 hours a week, which means 8 hours on every day, Monday to Friday. With this, you achieve the minimal feasible definition of capacity, right? And we need to have this information. Otherwise, you cannot schedule if we do not know how long you guys work. The demand for internal resources comes from your job planning lines, and the job planning lines to some extent are the minimum feasible definition of when something is going to happen, who is going to do this, and how long this is going to take. And you cannot create job planning lines without context. So the job planning lines require the existence of job tasks. And again, you cannot define job task without context. So job tasks require the existence of job. So what you need to have is you need to have a job in place with job tasks. This is what's going to happen in the job, and then have job planning lines on the jobs that kind of define the when, the how, and the how long, the when, the who, and the how long. On the one hand, on the other hand, have the resources set up. So this is like the minimum set of data we require for you to achieve the same visual scheduling or visual planning experience that I will show to you in a couple of minutes. So this webinar will be a bit of PowerPoint slides in the beginning and then a lot of demo, and I will run through all these 5 steps that mark up for the title of this webinar in all the details in a couple of minutes. So if you're bored by PowerPoint slides, please give me a couple of more minutes to set the scene and to kind of provide some context on what I'm going to demo actually later. What I will demo is like functionally, I will do some integrated project and resource scheduling. And the product that I will use for this is a product called VJS, Visual Job Scheduler. And the VJS is a resource and project planning drag and drop front end to the standard jobs and resource modules of Business Central. So the VJS is an extension that we have for Business Central. You can install it in on premises, but you can also get it from app source and then play around with it a little bit, or ask your partner for help or ask us for help if required. We have the same product also for those of you who are still on Dynamics NAV. So the Visual Job Scheduler is available both for customers who run the Dynamics NAV Windows client, as well as for customers who are in Business Central and are already on the latest and brightest. And even if you're on Microsoft Cloud, then you can just get it from app source like any other app you can find there. So it is a standard product that integrates with standard Business Central and does not need a lot of sophisticated installation, but you can just get it from this app source install. And if you're on-prem, ask your partner, they can give you a runtime package and install. It's pretty seamless and easy. Now let's come to the use case that I looked at for this webinar. And this is actually a use case that I have been kind of challenged with quite frequently the last couple of months, I would say. So from kind of regularly, we have both customers who are an ETO, so an engineering to order company, or we had like people looking at our software who, when we spoke to them, turned out to be an ETO company. And we have a lot of partners selling also like Business Central to engineering to other companies. So I thought that this time I will give this webinar this little ETO spin. But of course, if you're not an engineering to order company, but if you're just another project services type of company, a professional services organization, then a lot of what I will show in this webinar might also, will also apply to you. Maybe the processes, or definitively process, will be a little bit different, but like the methodology and the structure and the way of how I will approach planning and scheduling will also be applicable to you guys. But in this case, and also from like the processual data that we will look at in Business Central in a couple of minutes, this will require, this will mirror an engineering to order company. And I know that, I mean, engineering to order itself, it's a broad term. And there are a lot of typical flavors of engineering to order company. So I kind of had a company in mind that is a little bit of a design and assemble company, right? So a company that designs customer specific solutions and then gets the component, buys the components needed, maybe build a few proprietary components, and then pre-assembles them maybe in their factory in-house or on their site in-house before they then ship the parts to the customer and make like the final implementation on site with the customer. So this is like, when I talked about engineering to order today, I have this like design and assemble type of customer in mind. So typically they have two sources of revenue. Of course, this is the sell and the installation of new systems. But once those systems are implemented on site with all of their customer, then they maintain the system and they repair those implemented system. And typically for many customers that we are seeing is like this repair part of the business is ticking up and bringing some extra revenue. The process that I'm looking at is like, we have a project lead, we have a project manager who takes care for the bespoke customer project. And they orchestrate everything. Then typically, and especially involved in the beginning of the process, there is a kind of a technical office where CAD drawings are done, where other technical specifications are done, where maybe specifications are written for some components that we need to purchase, that need to fit into our system. So like these bureau, this office of technical people working on specification, working on CAD, and being extremely important, like for the early phases of the product. Then um, then once like the technical specification work is done, we see a lot of customers who have something that I would call product engineering. So the scope of the product engineering team is to build sub-assemblies in a more or less standardized way. So typically, even if the final scope of the delivery to the customer is very individual, very unique, very custom, very tailor-made, part of this of the final delivery to the customer is like using standard components, and these standard components are built by teams that look at themselves as component or product owners. So we have these kind of product engineering. Parallel to this, there will be also some components or some parts that we need, or sometimes there are some processes that needs to be done to help the product engineering teams that we outsource. So in the metal industry, where whatever you build some metal cabinets for customers, sometimes they need to get galvanized, and the galv line is quite an expensive thing, and it is not oftentimes not affordable for those engineering to order customers that I have in mind. So whenever they have galvanizing work to do, they send the material to their subcontractor and receive it back after a certain point of time. Then there's some custom engineering. So the custom engineering, these are the guys who take all the components, all the sub-assemblies coming out of project engineering and coming back from the subcontractors, and they basically build the system, um, not on site with the customer, but they build the system on site of the ETO, so that they have like the system in place, and then the customer can come, can look at this, can monitor this, do a factory acceptance test, and then like the scope of work is shipped to the customer, and then with the customer it is like integrated and implemented from an on-site implementation team. So I also try to kind of characterize this process following the dimension depth of product structure and type of process. So in the end, it is very a job shop type of process where things are very unique, and we have a very, very deep product structure, and products and sub-assemblies. Typically something is what we do internally, but we get some components and some special processes from outside vendors. And like a typical product that results from such a process is, for example, like an office access control system, where you also then have a combination of software and hardware, but where you actually build a lot of hardware, these kind of hardware systems to kind of manage the access of people to offices or buildings, depending on certain access rights. So this is the kind of the case. And of course, typical questions and challenges are like, hey, with a new inquiry, when can we deliver? How is our resource utilization in the critical parts of the company for the next couple of months? What can we tell the customer? Or something breaks with the customer, like something is wrong here, and we need to kind of set up an appointment for like service team to go out and fix. And this means we need to kind of understand what our people are doing and where they are at the moment. And these are the challenges. And whenever we came across customer cases that were like this, and whenever we discussed them with partners or with customers, we kind of figured out that actually in order to cope with these challenges, customers should do like 12 quite repeatable and reproducible steps in order to kind of achieve an integrated project management for such a type of company, for such a type of environment. And before I go to these 12 steps, I want to give you two extra tips that we also regard as extremely useful in order to achieve this effective engineering to order project management. And the first step is, it is really, really great that you're on a Vision or in Business Central, because this is a very, very powerful ERP system that helps you with a lot of tasks that you have to do, and that makes your life easier, that eases your processes, that streamlines your processes. So congratulations for being on that ERP system. Really, really cool stuff. However, before you jump into an ERP system and fiddle around with jobs and job tasks and products and get like a visual scheduler either from us or from other guys in place, just take a breath, cool down, don't jump into this part of the bit too early. Instead, look at your business and try to identify similar project structures. In most of the cases, when we talk to engineering to order companies, although everything what you ship to your client is really custom made, it is unique, it is tailor made, and it is something exceptional that you build. Although this is unique, the processes that bring you there, they repeat, and hence the execution or the steps that you execute to get to this really unique customer delivery, they are they follow similar pattern. And I really recommend that you take the time to look into all your projects and look out for these repeating pattern. And if you identify these repeating pattern, write them down and then build project templates in Business Central. And a template is a template. A template is never exactly what you will need in the end, but a template is something that gives you really a head start, that gives you a structure, that gives you something to build upon, and then again to customize for the project. But if you have this repeatable structure, set up project templates in Business Central. And even if they are not perfect, an imperfect template will make your life so much easier, will make your scheduling so much easier, and especially faster and more efficient and effective. So identify the structure, build templates in Business Central, make it quick and dirty. Start with quick and dirty. And make only like the minimum required in Business Central, and then use a product like the VJS kind of to staff and time schedule your template, so that you then have project templates with a typical project structure and with like the definition of an average resources requirement, right? So that you say, okay, for this task of project managers, I on average need 40 hours. And if this is on average 40 hours, then you will have project where it is 2 hours, and other projects that where you will need 200 hours, because an average is an average. So an average figure always is wrong, but an average figure helps you there to get a first visual project structure quite quickly that you then can efficiently change. And the second recommendation is, once you have set this up and once you create the project with the template, then there is no hen and egg problem anymore. So you don't need, or you should not be concerned of what to do first, time schedule or resource schedule, or do both, or do them revolving. Once the project is in Business Central created from the template, then first time schedule it. Get it on the timeline so that you know the steps and the sequence, and then resource schedule. And then if you need fine tune, but always once the project is set up, time schedule it first and then resource schedule. And with these two recommendations that I gave you in advance, and keep them in mind when we run through the steps and also run through the demo, here are actually the 12 steps for your ETO project management. And feel free to take a screenshot, but you can also watch out for a blog post to come out maybe next week or the week after, where we will summarize these steps. And I'm considering also having an infograph on this. So there will be content coming from us where we summarize these steps again. But the first step, of course, and this starts very fundamental, you need to create resource groups. And I recommend for an engineering to order company that you take a functional structure, so that you add your project managers in a resource group, your technical office in a resource group, your product engineering team in a resource group, and so on and so forth. And you know, the resource group, and you do this in Business Central, right? You don't do this with our product or with any other, you do this in the Business Central directly. The resource groups don't have any major implication on costing and accounting and general ledger, whatever. They are just a Business Central data field to help you group resources. So you can change it afterwards if you don't like the functional structure, but I would really recommend you start with a functional structure. If you would be a very service-based company, for example, then you could also think of like having a regional structure, so that you have your guys that service your customers in the north, that you have them in one group and the others. But in the case of the company that I described, I definitively would go for a functional structure. Then, of course, create resources, but I also really recommend that you create dummy resources. That you have dummy resources where you can do rough planning, right? That you say, okay, I have this piece of work where I need a project manager. And unfortunately, Business Central does not allow you to kind of plan on resource group level. And because you cannot do this, create a dummy resource that works as if it would be a resource group, so that you can say this piece of work should go to a project manager. And then when you get to the execution of the project, you can decide if this project manager should be Peter, Paul, or Mary. And you do this in Business Central. Then we need to have the capacity. So you need to set up, you need to assign the capacity to your resources. And then you're good on the capacity side of things. So then you can create a new job. And I would start with creating a template and define your project tasks. I would also recommend that you do not start numbering the task with 1, because the job task number field is an alphanumeric field. So and not a numeric field. So an alphanumeric fields they are sometimes hard to sort, because then like in the alphanumeric sorting, like 10, 20 comes before whatever 3, and this is this makes things hard. So I recommend that you start with working with project task numbers, like starting from a number range on where you then can kind of have them also count in a sequence, that you don't change the number of digits, because changing the number of digits that you have in your project task number will make the sorting hard, and this will also make the visualization of them hard, because we also need to interpret this job task number as an alphanumeric field. Then go to the job card and set a random duration on it that you can take out once you have set up the project based on the template. And this is needed for the VJS to show a project that only has task lines but no job planning lines, so that you then can staff it actually from the VJS. And this is the last thing you do in Business Central. Then you open the VJS, ideally filtered on this template, and then you can assign, I would say, dummy resources to the project task, and this is drag and drop thing. Then you can create dependencies between your project tasks or between the job planning lines, and this is also something you do visually, which Business Central does not allow you to do. And then you can time schedule the project. You can say, okay, now I have created dependencies. You can tell the VJS, hey, now schedule this, and it schedules them. And then you have a really nice template built visually with the VJS. Then go back to Business Central, create a new job from the template, and then do the 3 things that I said before: time schedule the project, split job planning lines if required. So if you like need to have two people, for example, working on one task, then you can split it and then assign the job planning lines to the resources and then fine tune. So, and now with having set the scene like this, let's have a look. And let me move to Business Central. I talked too long. So let me get in here again. Hello. So here we go. And some of the 12 steps that I said have been done before the webinar, but I will go through the 12 steps now. So let's look at my resource groups. So I set up resource groups in a functional way. I have some old stuff here which I don't need, so I filter them out and give them a high number, but typically I have the project management, I have my technical office, I have my product engineering, my custom engineering, my integration and service, and my subcontracting resource groups. So this is a very functional structure as I recommended it in these 12 steps. Then I set up my resources. And this is all standard Business Central, right? So I set up my resources. Here is Paul Little. Paul works in, I think he's a project manager. No, he's in the technical office. Base unit of measure is hours, and I assigned some direct unit costs and stuff like this. There's a general posting group. So very basic setup of the resource. That already does the job. Once you have set up your resource, and this is step 3, already do not forget to set the resource capacity. So you go here, then select that resource that you want to assign as capacity, and then you can say, okay, set the capacity. You specify your starting date and ending date, and say how many hours this person is available, and then say update capacity. I don't do it here because I did this before the webinar. This would be too time consuming now. Then what I said is, and you see this here on the very top of the list, I have these dummy resources set up so that I can take them as the substitute for the resource group. So whenever I have some custom engineering work that I don't want to assign to a person yet, I take this dummy resource custom engineering unassigned. And this prefix here on the number that you see, these $VJSRG dollar prefix, this is something we recommend to use because then we will look at this resource a little bit differently in the VJS. So then once you are done on the resource side of things, you can go and create your template. And if we look at my jobs here, I have a bunch of jobs. These 2 are completed. They will not show up in my visual schedule. I have a couple of jobs running. By the way, I created also a job for absences, and if we have time in the demo, I will show you what I can do with this. Quite fun stuff, actually. And then you see I have 2 templates. I have really a giant. So I thought that in my engineering to order company, actually, my projects typically have 2 different type of structures. So this is the Variant 1 and the Variant 2. The Variant 1, and we will look at this graphically also, is actually quite sophisticated, and this is already fully built out. So I will just give you a glimpse of what this is with project scoping, lot of tasks, technical specification, lot of tasks. Then there's standard components engineering. There is some tooling fixture and some assembly work. We have some outsource work, and then we fabricate custom components with fabrication, and then we build it all together. We run a factory acceptance test, and then everything goes to the customer with some on-site installation, some work packages until we get the final acceptance from the customer. So this is quite sophisticated. For the sake of the demo, I created another template that kind of is much easier. And this mirrors what I gave you as recommendation before. So step 4 was create a template job and define your project task. And you see, I only have project task. And in this project, we need project management, then it goes to the technical office, we need project engineering, we need a subcontractor, then we build the custom stuff, we do the installation, and we have to achieve the final acceptance. For every product you build, you need to have a build to customer. So I also recommend that you have a dummy customer for the purpose of the templating. And this was the fifth step, what is really important, that on this job card, you put a duration. Because right now you see there is no job planning line. I just created the job task, no job planning lines. I don't want to do this in Business Central. This is too hard to work, too hard to handle. This is done way easier with a graphical tool like the VJS. But if we open the template in the VJS, we need to show something, and in order to show something, we need to have this duration. And so with this, we go to the sixth step, and the sixth step was assigning the dummy resources to those project tasks. And this is something we actually do with the extension Visual Job Scheduler. So I'm opening my Visual Job Scheduler, and I predefined, and this is also some work that I did before, three filters. I can show all my products, I can show my active projects, and here I just want to see my template. So what you see here is that on the start of the VJS, you actually have the possibility to apply a filter so that you can only load what you want to focus on, and you can define as many filters as you like. You can give them speaking names so that you understand what happens when you apply the filter, and you can decide if you want to own this or use this filter on your own, or if you think that this filter of the show active project is really cool, then you can share it also with the colleagues. So my show project templates filter is set up as follows. It filters on the job where the job number starts with master. This is how I named my templates, and I filter on those resource groups that are meaningful for this webinar. So this resource group filter typically would not be needed in your case, but I have this old resource group in there with some legacy resources, which I don't want to see. So I filter them out by selecting all those that I want to see. So this is the filter. If I apply this, the Visual Job Scheduler loads. And now it takes the data from the projects that we defined with this filter. And if you remember my project list, I had two projects in there that match the criteria of the filter. And this is this giant or this larger project that I built with all the lot of steps, and then the simple one that I want to show you now to staff. So I have this Variant 1 project and the Variant 2. So now this is the Visual Job Scheduler. The Visual Job Scheduler comes with three views. We start to look at the first view, which is the job view, which shows me here in every line my projects or my jobs categorized by their status. So if they are open, planned, coded, or completed. And I have these two templates. They have the job status planning, and then they are shown here as this one line. We have this timeline here, and you saw that you can like adjust the timeline just with the mouse wheel, zoom in, zoom out. This is all very seamless. So just for your information, if you click on this triangle, you can drill down on a project. So now you see your project scoping and then technical specification. On a technical specification, I have the design specification and so on and so forth. This is the larger template that I created before. But now we want to actually get to step number 6 and assign dummy resources to the project task of the template master variant 2. So if we look at this template, we only see that we have these 7 job tasks that we saw when I opened the job card. And by the way, if I double click on the job bar, then the job card opens, and we had to type in these value so that we get the bar, and then everything else is loaded. So now the task is assign resources to those steps, right? That was like what we needed to do. So what I can do is I can toggle the creation mode. And then when I'm in the job view, I get the list of my resources here on the right-hand side. And now I can say who is going to work on which of these tasks in what kind of structure. So I can say, okay, for the project management, it starts the project manager. I will need one project manager. And when you build a template, you don't want to make the decision if this is, or typically not, you don't want to make the decision if it should be Linda, Mark, or Mary, but you say, hey, I need a project manager. So you take this from here, put it into the plan, and then it also asks you like, how much time do you want to schedule? So I say, okay, hey, actually, this is like complex project. This guy will need a week in the very beginning to set up the project, to schedule. So now I make this a little bit bigger that you see this. And now the job planning line has been created under this task where we assigned 40 hours to the unassigned project manager. Then in the technical office, we say, okay, we assign like the unassigned technical office, and we say, okay, actually, and our cool thing, we will need, let me make it easy, 24 hours. We make it complex later. So I say, okay, this is 24 hours project engineering, and I just drop it here and dump it here. Long stuff, 2 weeks of time. The subcontractor, and I don't know to which job shop this goes, so the subcontractor tells me, okay, I need 10 days, or I need 8 days, so 64 hours to get this done. Then we need the custom engineering guys to do some final tweak on the product, maybe 4 days. Then we go on site with our integration and service team, and we know installation work here are quite complex. We will be 2 weeks on site. And last but not least, Mr. Project or Mrs. Project Manager, has to get the final acceptance. So we assign the project manager again, and this should be done within 1 day because all the other guys are doing good work. So now I staffed my project, right? I staffed my project visually, and then I can say goodbye to the creation mode because now I created all these job planning lines for those job tasks, and I said, okay, who is going to work on which? And I see, we have them here. Okay, now the seventh step is link the project task. So define dependencies, and Business Central does not know dependencies. So the good news is the visual scheduler knows them. So I can say on a right click, start a link creation. And then on the target, I can say end the link creation. And this is a finish start relation. And the link duration in days should be 0. So as soon as this is done, we can finish with this. Then I do it here. Okay, when we are done with the technical office work, we can do the product engineering. I say end link creation, and actually again a finish start link. So once and you see now this link is shown me in red because now I have a link sequence violation, right? Because I said this is a start finish relation. So what I can do right now already from here, I can say scheduled successors, and then you see everything is arranged according to the dependencies. So now the thing is, once I'm done with the technical office, not only project engineering can start to work, but I can also say, okay, now I have my specification done. Also, the subcontractor can actually start the work. So I can say, hey, I do the end link creation, finish start, and I typically know that when they are done, they will need 2 days to send it back to me. So I can say the link duration, so the time gap between the finish of this and the start of the next should be 2 days. So and actually this was wrong because it is after when I receive it. But now I said, okay, it takes me 2 days to send the specification to the subcontractor. So now when my project guys are finished, then we can do the custom engineering. And this is again finish start. Also, when the subcontractor are done, we need their stuff for them to work. And again, it takes me 2 days or 1 day to receive it back from my subcontractor. And then after custom engineering, and now you get the principle. And this is why I kept this simple to not just do link creation in this webinar. But now let me complete this. Start link creation and and the link creation. So now I've set up the structure of my project. I stuffed it. I actually can like from here, we have link issues again, or let me do it from here. We can say schedule successor. So then now everything should be cleaned up accordingly. So this works quite fine. And you see also like the time gap from here to here, because we need this 1 day from subcontracting to get back before we can do the custom engineering. And now my project is set up, so time to save this. And then next time I open up the template, I have this defined as it is. So this time scheduling, this scheduled successors, like cleaning the sequence of the tasks up, this was actually the 8th step for effective ETO project management. And now, as the template is set up, we can actually create a job, a new project from that template, and then schedule that project. And so with this, I have to leave the VJS and I go back to standard Business Central dialogues, and now we create, and this is step 9, we create a new project from the template. So we create a new project, we call it the webinar sample project, or could have called it the variant 2. Let me call it the variant 2. And typing is always hard. And this should go to whatever. This is for Carew supermarkets. I like these guys. And then we say, okay, the status. Actually, now we are quoting this project, right? We are quoting this project. And now standard Business Central functionality has nothing to do with us, but all credits to Microsoft. You can say copy tasks. You can take now any job that you want to copy. I want to copy the template 2 that I created. I leave this blank so it copies all. I say copy quantity. And if I do so, you see I have not only my job task line, but now the date fields are populated because it also copied the job planning lines. So now when I'm in the VJS again, actually, I want to see this project in a specific color so that I quickly find them. So I tell the job card, okay, when I'm in the VJS, show this in the color that I selected. I think this was a version of green. So now go back to the VJS, but no longer use the templates, but now show me all active projects so that I see what actually is going on in my company and where I got now this, like, for example, this request for proposal where I'm quoting this project. The customer wants to have like an estimated timeline, some estimated costing. And so I have it rough cut. Let me load the data. And then we go to step 10. This is time scheduling the project. So now you see under my quoted project, there is this variant, the sample project, and it is here. Look, this is how it was set up based on the template, but my customer actually requesting me like a start date mid of February. So let me quickly do one cool thing. I expand all, and I can also move it from here to, let's say, the 16th of February as a start date that my customer is requesting, or the 15th, so that we start on a Monday. And then when you move it like this, all underlying job task and job planning lines are directly moved. So now we come actually, and after the project has been created from the template, we come to step number 10, and this is the second recommendation: first time scheduled, then resource scheduled. So now let's do a couple of things. So first of all, time schedule means the one thing, I just changed the timing of the overall project. But here in this case, I know the customer is quite challenging, quite demanding. So the project manager, with kind of writing everything up, setting everything up, they will not manage to get this done in 40 hours. But I know they will take longer, so I have to change the quantity. So instead of like I will give them 3 days more, so 64 hours. And then you see, if I do so, everything got updated and the link structure made sure that we pushed out all the other stuff. And then I do it again and then follow the links here. So the technical office also, they will need longer, and this is step 10, like the time scheduling. I put it on the timeline first so that I get the structure right. And also what I know is like, oh, the situation at the customer is very specific, so I have to install my stuff in very narrow space. So I know that I won't manage it in 80 hours, but I assume I will need 180 hours. But I also already know 120 hours. But I also already know that I will not only send one person to do it within 120 hours, but I will send 3 people so that I'm done in 1 week. So now what I can do is actually I can split the job planning line. So I can say, okay, I want to split it into portions of 80 and 40. And here we go. We have the 40 and we have the 80. Let me save this for a moment. And you see, I get also some notifications that I'm exceeding capacity, but I'm still not done with time scheduling. And now I split the job planning line again into 40-40. And now I've set this up. And I can like schedule the successor again from here to bring this guy forward. And so now my new project is time scheduled. I'm saving it again, and whenever I press save, it actually saves it back into the business central job, into the job task, into the job planning lines. Everything is updated accordingly. So now I time scheduled the project. Now the next step, and we already did 11, like the split job planning lines if required, because we decided, because this is a lot of work to do, we send 3 people at the same point of time. And now is the last step. We have to resource schedule it, so assign the job planning lines to the resources. And this is nothing that you can do from here. So first of all, we have a second view that I didn't show you so far. It shows you every information based now from the perspective of the resource groups and the resources. So you see, I have my project managers here, I have my technical office, I have product engineering, and so on and so forth. And now you see like these green boxes. This is my new project. And you see, I got a notification, the resource project manager unassigned capacity was exceeded. So this means that, and this is where we treat this resource different than the others, because it has these, remember, this is the unassigned resource group. It has this prefix. And because it has this prefix, it first gives you this number in front. This tells you that there are 2 job planning lines on that resource group or on that dummy resource that you have to assign. And in terms of kind of checking a capacity violation, we treat this resource as if this would be the group of all of them. So what we have here is what we call the histogram, the capacity utilization chart. And for this unassigned resource group, for this dummy resource that comes with these specific prefix, this is the aggregated capacity utilization of these 3 guys, also of all resources that are part of the resource group. And we see that with the current schedule, like we lack project manager capabilities here in that week. So we can tell the customer, look, we will not be able to start in this week because like our guys are pretty busy, and then they can say maybe we could start earlier, but if the customer is not ready, then we say, okay, we need to actually postpone this by 2 weeks, because here in the second week we cannot handle the project scope, because we actually did bad management, because Linda and Mark, they are on vacation. These are these black bars, and Mary is already scheduled. So now we need to tell the customer, okay, realistically, and now you see if I move this to here, and then I say, okay, now I have an issue in the technical office, because like March here in Germany, late March, some people tend to go on skiing vacation and other already escape into the sun. So we have issues with the technical office. So maybe we need to shift this task by another week. Then all notifications are done. And now I can actually already now I know I have no capacity overlap right now. So I can tell the customer, hey, if I get the order now, I can confirm that we would be able to deliver, and this is the last task, by end of April. By the 23rd of April, we will get the project scope done. And now, when we come closer to actually executing the project, I can say, okay, now this is something that I want to mark to handle. And now I moved it a little bit, so let's get it back to the Monday. Mark should handle it. And then from the technical office, I want Tom to work on that. So now I'm doing the last step. This is step 12. I'm assigning the job planning lines from the group, from the dummy resource, to who is going to work on this. So this one here, this is something for John, because Mats and Timothy are a little bit busy here. When it comes to custom engineering, I see, okay, Alan is busy in the required time, and Steve is busy, Reese is on vacation. Okay, Peter, you got the job. Okay, this is how you can schedule this, and then also you can talk to your subcontractors and then move it to the subcontractor, and so on and so forth. Here we have no issues with these things that go to the integration and service team. So this is like pretty straightforward now if you have all these puzzle pieces in place, and then again you can save it and it is pushed back to Business Central. Okay, and if actually now you get a request from like Tom, who says, hey, I want to go on vacation in the weeks 13, you can look at this and say, hey, look, Tom, you know what? Get this job done here for whoever the customer was, get this job done, and then you're okay with the vacation. And then again, you can toggle the creation mode, and then we do it vice versa. You select a bar here, and then you see my job absences. Let's collapse it, and then we can just put down here, like he requested, a job planning line on the absences project for this entire week for Tom, so that we know, okay, once he's done with this job here, he's enjoying well-deserved vacation. So this is also something where this creation mode, like we saw it in the job view before, there you could assign a resource to a job task and hence create the job planning line. And in this resource view, you can create a job task to a resource. And if you have a project like I have here with the absences, you can just move it from the right and have it on the schedule, save it, and then you know that this is happening. So I think this is pretty cool stuff. And there are a zillion of more features within the VJS. And by the way, I showed you the link duration feature. This is something that shipped with the very latest release that we silently did like 2 weeks ago, because we released the Visual Job Scheduler 1.11, and 1.11 had some bugs. So we decided to do a hot fix. And while one guy was doing the hot fix, the other guy was finishing the link duration feature. So we said, okay, if we ship the hot fix to app source, the 1.11.1 version, then this should include the new feature. So if you install VJS from app source new, and if you install the latest version, the 1.11.1, or if you download it from our partner portal, then you will see the link duration feature that you might miss in your VJS because it is new, and we didn't talk about it so far because it just kind of more or less silently came into the product. So we will also mention it in the next newsletter or in one of the upcoming blog posts. And with this, I actually shared with you the 12 steps for your effective engineering to order project management with Business Central, and want to conclude with a final recommendation. So with the Visual Job Scheduler, you achieve an integrated project planning and resource scheduling. And this can be really, really powerful. However, the word visual sounds nice and easy, and to some extent, visual also is nice and easy. But the thing is, a nice and easy tool alone does not do the job. But you also need to have knowledge about how to best use the product. You should know some best practices. And we really provide you with a ton of content that you can learn this all on your own. So we have these regular webinars, we have a knowledge base on our website, we regularly put out blog posts that are also explaining features and their usage. So I'm completely happy if you learn it all on your own. However, if you want to don't do it all on your own, and if you want to have a quick start to an integrated project and resource scheduling, then you can also make use of our what we call the quick start package, where we help you with setting up the VJS, where we look at your data and where we give you some really hands-on advice how we would recommend you to project plan and resource schedule your jobs based on our experience made working with your peers over the last couple of days, and that can also help you gain some quick scheduling value from Business Central plus the VJS. And with this, um, I'm at the end of this webinar, and I would like to really open it up for questions. So if you have any questions, there was none so far. I see one is coming in at least. One question is, to have a resource move seamlessly from one project to another, can you put a task dependency on a task from another project? Yes. So we saw the dependencies that I had, and I'm glad that you asked this question, Mike. You saw the dependencies that we have, and the dependencies that I showed you and that I created only were from job planning line to job planning line. But there are, let me go back for a second, just to know what I'm talking about. So when we look at the VJS, and we look at this from the other point of view, when we look at a chart like this, there are three, let's say, visual entities here. We have the job planning line, where I built the links. We have these symbols representing the job task, and we have this symbol that represents the job. So now the question is, what can I link? And if we do a 3x3 matrix with job task, and job planning line, then you can make a check mark in all of these boxes of the 3x3 matrix defined on both axes with job task, and job planning line. So you can link a job planning line to a job task. You can link a job task to a job planning line. You can link a job to a job. You can link a job to a job task. You can link a job to a job planning line. You can link a job planning line to a job. So all of these combinations are possible. And I hope that this answers the question. So now there was another one, and I need to figure out where to get it. Wow. I see that there's another one. Just give me a second, because GoToWebinar is not working as I want to work, as I want it to work. There we go. Just give me a second, please. Here we go. So how much of this functionality is available in NAV 2018 on-prem versus BC? Wow, that's a good question, Barrett. I would say most of it, with the exception of in Navision, we don't have the link duration. In Navision, you only can link the job planning lines to other job planning lines, and in Navision there is no there is something like the scheduled successors function, but it works differently. Let's phrase it that. But I would say most of it still is available in the vision. However, we are now building additional functionality, especially in Business Central. So I hope that these answers the questions given, the questions asked. So if you have more questions, feel free to ask them. I now know how to get to the questions quickly. And if there is no further question, then I'd really like to thank you very much for your kind attention joining me on this webinar today. And as said before, I'd really appreciate to get in contact, and I'm more than happy to work with you guys. If you have ideas what we can do to make our products better, please contact me. If you have ideas what we can do to make our service better, please contact me. If you have any other idea, just get in touch. We are really, I'm keen on listening, and I'm keen on engaging, and every tip, every idea you share is highly appreciated. Obviously, you can reach me on email, and you will find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but I spend more time on LinkedIn than on Twitter. And I see there is another question coming in. Two other questions. How do you see the relation of production and delivery of a designed product? Standard Business Central does not have stock in a project job right now. And this is also, JJ, this is a very good question. Right now, we do not see this. However, we started to do some head scratching and specification work on how to deal with items, and this specification work now is going on, and we have the idea to kind of have some, let's say, item orientation within the project and resource scheduling built within this year. So most likely with the December release, we will see like initial functionality where we also take into account items. This will be like, whenever we do a product, we follow a minimum viable product approach. So we know that with the related product delivery of a design product, but also with items and item availability and items being produced on a production order, there is lot of room for imagination and a lot of room for coming up with some nice feature ideas. We are currently specifying this out, and then we take a subset of this where we say, okay, this will be like the minimum viable useful scope, and then we will definitively, or we look at implementing this throughout the fourth quarter so that we can ship this latest in December. Then there are questions with experiences with Kuma Vision Project BC add-on. Yes, not only experiences, but we have a joint customer in Germany, Sonia. So if I'm currently do not know if you work for Kuma Vision or for Kuma Vision competitor or for Kuma Vision partner or for a Kuma Vision customer. But if you want to learn more about this, just ping me an email, send me an email, and then I can share with what we've done with Kuma Vision and their project add-on, because as I said, we have an integration there, we have a joint customer, and if you're not a Kuma Vision competitor, then I'm happy to share with you all the details. The answer is yes, and please get in contact so that we can discuss. So I'm glad actually that you challenged me with a couple of questions. I currently do not see any more questions. So again, thanks for today. We will make the recording available latest on Friday, but most likely tomorrow. And as said, reach out if you have any question, any idea, any tip. I'm always happy about this. So thank you very much. Take care and goodbye. Bye-bye.